I'll call the meeting to order. We'll start with just a roll call. McKee here. Schultz.
Here.
Adama.
Hi.
Schultz. Nichols.
Here.
Sorry, on your birthday, forget your name. And
Birthday.
yeah, it is.
Thank you.
Birthday.
You guys could sing happy birthday.
Just don't make me sing happy birthday.
Exactly. Well, before that, I'll stand and invite everyone to join in on the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, agenda approval. Brad.
Mayor and Council, a couple items for you. One is an added consent item we have under 7I. It's a temporary liquor license from the J.C.'s for Heidi's Grill House Oktoberfest. But that's in front of you on the dais there. And then we'd actually like to remove item 8A, which is the rezoning site plan, conditional use permit, preliminary plat, and variance for garages 2. And the reason behind that is the applicant, after talking to a couple council members, as well as hearing the planning commission discussion, has a proposal for some changes, including gated entry, reduced hours, and some new lease language. And we felt versus dropping that on the council tonight, the best to actually pull the item from the agenda and push to the September 23rd meeting, and the applicant is in favor of that as well. So it's really to add 7I, the temporary liquor license, and removing 8A. I also just will comment for those here, we do have public comment opportunities at open forum, and then each of the business items as well, and we do keep that to 5-minute minimums. That's all.
Thank you. Anything else from council, or does that work for everyone too? Yeah. Perfect. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended with the removal of 8A and addition of 7I.
So moved. Nichols.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Do we want to, Mr. Mayor, can I mention something?
Go ahead.
So like those of you that wanted to publicly comment on 8A, we'll have we're going to address that in the future, so I would make the suggestion that you come again and publicly comment then, because what you'll see later is perhaps something different than what you see today.
Oh.
But everybody is this is the public opportunity. You can say whatever you want all the time. Today, we're not going to discuss that item, which a lot of you are here for. But we can still listen, but if you want to save your powder for the night that we actually talk about it, that would be probably better, but we're okay either way.
Yeah, it's not on the planning business anymore, but, so it can be brought up in open forum.
Right.
Feel free to do that.
Yeah.
Yep. Good point. Okay. And we will, let me highlight our commission representatives. We have Dean Jacobs and John Dugan, Planning and Parks and Trails respectively here. And we'll go right into open forum. And Brad and or Jessica will walk us through in person and online.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, we do have one in person here, Greg Hoagland.
Sounds good.
And actually, Greg, I forgot to turn the mic on, so Natalie's going to turn the mic on there. Just got to hold it down. Thanks, Natalie.
Is that working?
Yep, I think so.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Greg Hoban. I'm at 19220 Hackamore Road. I have two topics I wanted to address tonight. The first one is the city continuing the discussion of eliminating conditional uses on 1,000 acres of designated land in Corcoran?
Yeah, I'll break from our normal style on this, and it's still going to have a public hearing that's scheduled on September
Second, Planning Commission.
Yep,
Okay.
with that and the other options that are being discussed.
Thank you. As I've said in the past, we've got a council member here that was very vocal before he was a council member against a church coming into Corcoran a couple years back. And Jerry May was very vocal. He's anti-church. He's now broadened that as a council member to have a radical change in Corcoran to cover 1,000 acres of Corcoran that would eliminate conditional uses. No churches, no schools, no public use or assembly. So the ramifications of that is, let's say a private school wanted to come into the Rockford School District. It could have a radical change on this city. A church, a temple, anything could. But we've got a gentleman who's now come in and wants to, because he didn't want a church in his backyard, wants to now take that out to 1,000 acres. And basically, I know he's very thorough. He's a very smart man. I would be willing to bet he's not talked to any landowners in those 1,000 acres. And just like you guys did tonight, you should, if you're really about the city, have a talk or a discussion with the landowners. And you've seen some that have been in here, because I've went door to door, and I've talked with Shamrock Golf Course, what have you. If you want the voice of Corcoran, it should not be Jeremy from Ravinia. Okay? That would be my logical next step. Are the landowners aware of what is coming? And I can guarantee you they're not. And two, it will have a significant impact on the value of their land. Okay? Topic number 2. I listened last week, your last meeting about taxes. Okay? My perception with 1,000 homes of Lennar under construction and Del Webb and all the activity that's going on in this city, that, just like Alan said in that meeting, there should be some perception that taxes might be going down, okay? We all know in the last year, when the assessor comes out and starts assessing these homes, everyone's home in Corcoran, I can guarantee you there's going to be a 10, 20% increase in the value of everyone's home, which we all know means your taxes are going up. On top of that, I listened to the spending proposals. We've got, I guess, we're going to 50 staff members, a HR director here, $100,000 vehicles being spent, and my hope is some of you are here as fiscal conservatives to examine spending. And lastly, with all this development and all these homes coming in and $7,000 a home parkland credits, and there's a lawsuit coming here, you would think visibly once in a while that the citizens of Corcoran would be seeing some of that money being spent on us. I go to the Ravinia Park, okay, where there's beautiful equipment there. There's 7 dead trees out of 7 dead trees. Somebody might want to put some trees in the budget. Last year, too, we talked about a warming house in the state of hockey that we were debating spending $11,000 to fix the roof, okay? You would think, as you're debating hundreds of thousands of vehicles and trucks and $1 million additions to this city hall, maybe there's a proposal or a way to update the warming house. So my point is, taxes should be coming down, and or there should be something visible for the citizens to be seen of how you're spending our tax dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Mr. Mayor, may I have 30 seconds?
Sure. Go ahead.
I would just like to point out that the proposal that we'll be debating on September 2nd, will be heard on September 2nd, is a public forum. So if anybody would like to speak their mind on the different options that have been drafted by different members of the council, they're welcome to do it at that point. I'd also like to point out that just using the word radical doesn't make it true. In fact, one of those 2 models is the same as is used in Greenfield, same as used in Medina, same as is used in Wayzata for controlling what can go in what parts of the city. Okay, thank you.
That's all we had. Is
Okay.
online, Jessica, you want to walk through that?
Sure.
Excuse me, I did turn in a card, but it was for 8A. I did turn in
Yep.
a card, but it was for 8A, and I can't make the 23rd. Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome to speak now on it.
Just gonna come to the podium with your name
Yep.
and address, please.
And then I'll go over instructions for those who are
Perfect.
online.
I don't think I can make the 23rd. Good evening, my name is Joe Schelbetter. I live at 6780 Lakeview Circle / Horseshoe Bend Drive. I only became aware of what was going on, and I'm also a business owner, so I'm not anti-business. I just have a few quick comments, questions. 34-year resident of Corcoran, 31 years in the Schnell's Highland, Lake Jubert Estates, whatever it is, neighborhood. My question is, if approved, this variance to turn a residential lot into a commercial lot in the middle of a residential neighborhood, if approved being rezoned, a precedence will be set. I live in the back of the neighborhood on the lake. So once that precedence is set, maybe I can, rezone the lot as an RV park on a lake or a retreat center or something like that. So I just say, be cautious of setting a precedence, of rezoning urban residential, I believe is the neighborhood right now, into a commercial lot. The next question is, what would stop the developer from the current plans? And now, if I understood right, it's not gonna go back through the planning commission, but they're gonna come up with a new set of plans. What's gonna stop the developer in 5 years from now coming in and saying, walking into City Hall and saying, I'm gonna apply for a driveway permit and put a driveway through the residential lot into that commercial development? Now, you've driven commercial traffic into a residential neighborhood, unintended, but what would stop that in 5 years, 10 years, next year? I know that somebody wrote in and said, where will the water go? Good question. Goes into a couple of neighbors' yards and then eventually into the ground, but there is no outlet in that area. Unlike Lake Jubert flows, I think, all the way to Elm Creek and to the Mississippi River, believe it or not. Really, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Anyone who's joining us online, if you'd like to join open forum, you can press *9 and raise your hand. Otherwise, click on the reactions button if you are on a computer or tablet. And raise hand. Mayor, at this time, no one's raising their hand.
Okay. Sounds good. Then we can go into consent agenda, which consists of items 7A through 7I with the latest addition. So now, does everyone have a copy of that one? I think so. Hand it up. The 7I.
Yes, it should be underneath.
We're gonna
the
address any of his questions.
rezoning.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do we want to?
You know what, I wrote down Joe's phone number, I was gonna plan on giving a call, actually.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that. Didn't mean to just skip over it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
since 8A, I assume a lot of you are here for 8A, and since we're not going to discuss 8A, can we just pause for a second and
Sure.
allow people who want to leave?
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
meeting's going to be awesome, must see TV, but I think I think we can pause and just allow people who want to leave.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming out. Sorry to pull the rug out. You guys can email and call us also.
Absolutely. Please do.
And we can have a back and forth that way. At open forum, it's kind of one direction, where people come in here and tell us stuff, but we won't be able to interact unless we email and call. All of us are good about taking this.
When is this gonna be?
September 23rd.
23rd, people.
It should be.
Yes.
In here, everything's functioning perfectly. I was just talking to you about out there in the lobby, the audio wasn't functioning. So.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yep.
Good deal.
Sorry.
And we'll be
sorry to
posting
do
it.
that, but
Oh, no, that was a good call. It was a good call. Otherwise, it would have been.
They're probably like, oh my God, we got.
Right. Have to sit through the whole thing.
Now we
Okay.
got the diehards here.
Yeah.
There's donuts, right?
No.
I baked and shaved.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Then we will go into consent. 7A through 7I, is there anything that council wanted to pull?
No.
All good? Nothing for me. Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve consent agenda consent agenda consisting of items 7A through 7I.
I so move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, well, moving right along to 8B now, because 8A was removed, which is the sketch plan at 23185 County Road 10.
Hey, Mayor and Council, we do have two items. We do have a public comment opportunity for those who want to talk about either the sketch plan at 23185 County Road 10 or the sign ordinance update. We have nobody internally here, so those
Yes.
sorry.
Anyone virtually can raise their hand by pressing *9 or pressing pressing the reactions button and then clicking raise your hand, and we can recognize you. Mayor, at this time, we have no one raising their.
Okay,
So go into Kendra.
perfect.
This is a sketch plan for the property on 23185 County Road 10. It wraps around the Public Works facility and reaches out to County Road 19. So think about it. This exhibit shows the property. The north is County Road 10, and the west side of the parcel is County Road 119, and that little exception in the middle is the Public Works facility. Next slide. When you look over where the red star is on the map, that's the property. I wanted to use the zoning map. It's zoned rural residential, but there is shoreland that runs through the middle along that creek. So that's a factor for how this property gets sort of separated into two parcels and is divided by that creek. Next slide. It is 124 acres. As I mentioned, it's got the Shoreland Overlay District. It's also got high-quality maple basswood forests that are identified on our natural resource map, as well as a number of wetlands. Next slide. The concept plan is 10 residential lots on the east side and 3 commercial lots on the west side with a outlot in the middle. The commercial lots would be a change in land use, so it would require a comprehensive plan amendment from rural residential to rural commercial, and a rezoning for those 3 parcels from rural residential to rural commercial. It will require relocating the Public Works access to share access at that new proposed public street onto County Road 19. Informal comments with Hennepin County have indicated that they will require our access to move, but that road would be built by the developer. Outlot A is separating the commercial and the residential, and as the council knows from some recent applications, we do not allow people to create outlots without development rights. So he has proposed an outlot with the idea of dedicating it to the city for park dedication. But I think that's an issue that the Parks and Trails Commission needs to discuss, because we have, this was identified as a potential athletic search area. We have since acquired the community park with the school property, which really meets the needs. But it is a conversation that if this moves forward, Parks and Trails Commission will discuss. If the council has strong feelings one way or the other, they should talk about that tonight. But generally, if we don't accept it for park dedication, it will need to be absorbed by the adjacent commercial and residential lots. But we will still preserve a trail easement along that creek. And Parks and Trails will have to have a discussion about which side of the creek it sits on and how residents would get, and commercial users would be able to get to that, depending which side it's on. So the next slide does show the concept plan, and it's laid over the aerial, so it is a little bit tricky to see, but in the upper right-hand corner, the east side of the site has the 10 lots. It comes down in a public street cul-de-sac and does show a stub street to the east, which is required by our comprehensive plan, We'd want to see a ghost plat for that property to the east to make sure that stub isn't going into a wetland or a stand of trees, but it provides a potential opportunity. Hennepin County is trying to limit, not surprisingly, accesses onto 10, so we look for ways to provide multiple routes. But if you look on the west side of the site, the north, let me say it differently. The southeast corner of the intersection of 10 and 19 has the Three Rivers Trailhead, and then that vacant property there is planned for D&D Service. You approved a site plan for them earlier this year, and they are working through the watershed and hoping to begin construction for that office warehouse use. So the 3 commercial lots that he would like are directly south of that. So it would really be an expansion of our rural commercial area with those 3 lots. It is a significant policy decision. The council has a lot of discretion in reviewing that. Staff does not have any objection to the change. Again, it's just an extension of that boundary. But the applicant is here tonight to get council feedback, use that feedback then to proceed with a formal development application. So the next slide just says, provide feedback to the applicant.
That's it.
Yeah. Could we pull up the, like, this is the zoning map and try to zoom in on that area?
So, oops, that's a little awkward. That.
And the applicant is on virtually, Mr. Mayor.
Gotcha.
Do you have any questions?
Sounds good. Did you have something?
Well, historically speaking, we've sort of that rural industrial, what is it, rural commercial? I've been here 5 years, and I think that the conversation has went expand, make smaller, expand, contract.
Gotcha.
So like it's been, Kendra, I was just saying that that area for rural commercial has expanded and contracted. Like at one point, we're gonna have a huge swath of zoning it a certain way, and then we sort of backed off. So like, it's not as though we're taking something that we all dreamed about being residential and changing it, because we've had some fluidity to the zoning of that piece of property before. That's initially, there's helped to have history that sort of like we have contemplated changing the zoning in the past.
That's correct. That D&D Service property to the northwest of this was partially rural commercial and partially residential, and we recently re-guided that, so it's all that rural commercial. So it was an expansion of the rural commercial zone.
We had talked about at one point, you're eyeing the sewer and water coming up through a corridor on 19, but then Greenfield's water treatment plant like fell apart somehow, or Loretto's, and so it's not crazy that we'd have an increase in that kind of use there.
Yeah.
Just the water and sewer aren't there yet.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, you kind of touched on what I was thinking with it. It seems that this proposal would make kind of fill in kind of that natural gap of what we've already got up there to public works, and as it's drafted right now, or drawn right now, have kind of a pretty substantial buffer between that and the existing homes in the area to the south, and that and the proposed new homes to the east, which I like having that big kind of buffer there to, what is it, a 60-some acre outlot as drawn? And I guess my question on that would be, so it would be dedicating that entire outlot as park, or?
That is the developer's proposal, is to dedicate Outlot A to the city for parkland.
Okay.
Are you suggesting that isn't such great parkland, or is it sort of like we need other people's opinions on the quality of that parkland?
A little both. I think it is, it was initially identified as a potential search, this entire property was identified as a search area for a community park. Identified as a community park for a ball field complex. And we have since acquired the former Rockford School property and expanded community park at a triangle of 10 and 50. And so I'm not sure that the ball field complex originally envisioned for this site is still on the Parks and Trails Commission's priority. And I think it's important that they weigh in on whether they think this makes sense in our larger park plan, but I also think it's important for them to hear from the council, you know, do you want to give up park fees and accept this parkland, and what might we do with this parkland?
Yeah. Can we separate the two? Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Can we separate the two? And I don't know if just because at one point we wanted to buy that land and put ball fields there, I think that's a different, I don't know if that's relevant to this, because like we can't deny a project because we want to buy it and make it ball fields, right? We have to, just because we earmark it, but we haven't bought it, and we can't supersede the owner's wishes on the property just as a city because we want to put.
Well, we can in this sense. It does still show as a search area on our parks plan. And if the city wanted the park, we could require dedication of that as parkland. We would not get the 65 acres he's proposing. Our park dedication ordinance only, I believe it's 3% of the land area.
Yeah.
That we could require him to dedicate. So in terms of land mass, it's more than we could require.
Yeah,
We could
okay.
require some park dedication.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great for the Parks and Trails Commission to discuss. See what they think. I spoke briefly with Tom and Sharon. A little bit of feedback. And they seemed like they would really be looking forward to getting this as a proposal and seeing what the entire commission thought of it. But it seemed like they had some ideas for the value that it could bring as that large outlot. So I think there's some interest at least.
I think at the very least, we'd want an easement for the proposed off-road trail that we have on our 2040 plan.
For sure.
So, and as you said before, it does create a nice buffer between the existing neighborhood to the south, it wasn't on the map up there before, to the south and east. And when you look to west of 19, there's only really one residential property out there that's actual residential, otherwise it's zoned, what is it, rural service commercial? The other ones.
Yeah.
So there isn't
Yep.
a whole lot of impact on the commercial in my mind, especially having public works there.
Right.
So,
I have a question,
Go.
probably for Kendra. If we did go down the path of accepting the applicant's proposal and taking outlot A, would, say, 10 years down the road, if Public Works needed to expand, is that land flexible in what we would actually do with it? Could some of that be used for something other than a park, or are we limited to only using it as parkland?
I think when it's dedicated as parkland, you're limited, but we could certainly look into that a little bit, versus public use versus park use.
Yes, I think there's a way you could plat it, so it could be used elsewhere, whether it's zoned differently in the future. I think it's a good question, and I think we would potentially want to think through that at the very least.
I like it as parkland.
Yeah.
I'll echo what Tom and Alan, I think John, seemed to express, that it'd be great to have buffer space there. I think with the other natural features with the creek, having a wider corridor would be a great amenity. We don't have a lot of space like that. I like the larger size of the parcel, in that most of our open space parks we have so far are relatively small. And I think with the Birchview School site close by, there could be kind of a neat trail network that could tie to a historical site in the future as well. And as other adjacent parcels develop, maybe that trail corridor could be extended further. So I see a lot of benefit. Unless I'm missing something, I'd like to see that part of the plan get adopted personally.
Good.
Could you circumvent a park issue by buying the land for $1, per se, and put it on just the city's property?
You know, I think there's a way to acquire it and give park dedication credit to the developer and leave options open. I'm just not entirely sure that I could describe it tonight. So
Gotcha.
I think if this moves forward, that's something we'll work with the city attorney and make sure we have our options for you.
Sounds good. And Commissioner Jacobs, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, so if outlet A goes into a park use, would it be beneficial to maybe provide, I haven't admittedly walked over this Rush Creek, but how about a bridge for people to get from residential to the park?
Yeah.
I mean, again, I don't know what the park map says the trails, but
I'm surprised.
something that I'd be interested in hearing.
Yeah.
What that would look like if they incorporated that as part of that. Somehow getting from that, from east side to the west side.
Gotcha. Appreciate the feedback. Add that to the list for Parks and Trails to look at. Perfect. Is there anything else on this?
I think, I'll just add one more comment.
Yeah.
In principle, because of where this is located, I don't have a lot of concern about the creation of more commercial, because it is already bordering public works and other commercial property. So I feel like in other cases, I would not be supportive of changing residential land to commercial. But given where this is and the uses around it, I feel like this is a parcel I would consider doing that on.
Yeah. There seems to be some logic behind it.
Yeah.
So the purpose, I think what Nate is looking for is, his next step is gonna be to spend like 200 grand on
Yeah.
whatever, on formal plans, and historically, when we've seen a concept plan, if there are issues that are gonna come up, we need to have them on the table so
Right.
we can make a decision about that. I'm not, I would just say, I like it at face value. And I think that outlot A idea is, we haven't seen this, and I think it's new, and I think
Yeah.
it's kind of cool.
I agree.
Mayor and Council, the applicant would like to say a few words virtually, if that's okay.
That'd be great.
Please.
Nate, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello. Hopefully, there's not too much crazy feedback coming through.
All good here.
Thank you. I appreciate council's and commission's feedback and comments so far. One thing I wanted to, and it could be a miscommunication on my part too, but I just wanted to ask a little bit more about the access. This property, just by ordinance, the development in the northeast corner works. I mean, it just fits all the boxes. It's just kind of everything works real neatly there. Bringing the concept to council, as we're discussing now, certainly is at the discretion of the council, and that's part of the feedback we're looking for today. But I did want to say, first of all, that the size of Outlot A, I think what we were envisioning, this got put out as a concept plan, that, potentially there would be some shape that the city would weigh in on and say, we like, perhaps there's a reason they want some of that northern space, or perhaps there's a reason they want more space around the city building. So I guess I would ask that in order to keep some of this land in farm service, we just ask if, would there be some flexibility for the city to come back and say, this is what works for a park. I'm assuming there's subject matter experts that, that know what a park, what the size should be. What I'd like to do is keep any of the extra property either as, adjoining to the development, adjoining to the commercial lots, or in some other way, keep it in farm service if possible. So,
Gotcha.
well, I probably said a lot of stuff there, but I guess my point is we're looking for feedback on, would there be interest in a park? And if so, what size and shape would the city be looking for? And then part B of that is the access. Kendra referenced it as relocating the access. In my conversations with the transportation planning at the county, they had indicated that they preferred to see access coming off, essentially that road that the city built was a road that was built, for future service, and that they would prefer to see access points coming off of that. I guess you could say sharing that access with the city. No, that's the city's property, so that's part of what I'm looking for feedback on as well. So obviously part A, the ball field concept, but part B, is there a way for me to use that, or for the future developer to use that city access?
Gotcha. I would say regarding the park, I think, yes, there is interest from the city in terms of what the exact use or exact shape or size. That would probably be a better question for Parks and Trails Commission. But I would think we would have flexibility in figuring that out. And regarding the access, I would maybe ask Brad a little more on that.
Well, I feel like we
Kendra.
just got a new concept plan from Nate verbally now. I think it's very different from what he's shown.
Gotcha.
And so I'm a little concerned that the feedback would not be very meaningful tonight. And my suggestion might be that we get the plan that Nate actually described and maybe take a look at that, because that's different. If he is not proposing all of Outlot A to be deeded to the city, which his narrative says, I think it's a different discussion with the Parks Commission.
Right.
I think my suggestion would be this, that maybe Nate rethink his plan and get us a new plan. We bring it to Parks Commission, and then we bring this concept back to you after Parks Commission has weighed in. I'm a little worried that it changed in my mind pretty dramatically with those couple of comments, and I wouldn't want him to proceed with a full development plan without you knowing exactly what you're providing comments on.
That makes sense, and I think I'd really like to see Parks and Trails take a crack at it and kind of get a sense of what they'd like out of it before it comes back to us in concept. I think that's a really good idea.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I've got a question. From reading the packet, it sounds like the issue with what I think I heard Nate propose, where that Outlot A would be divided and part of it kept as farmland, we run into that there's no building rights left over issue. Would the city consider leasing portions of Outlot A to a farmer? Is that something that the city has ever done? Is that a possibility?
We currently lease farmland.
Yeah, I think the question would be whether the applicant would want to keep that for revenue. Then, of course, that'd be the issue there. But yeah, we do have a history of leasing out for farmland.
Okay.
I think it's fair to say that the park board or the park commission is gonna like the acre.
Yeah, I would think.
So I don't know, I don't know if there's gonna be a contentious debate about that. I think they're gonna be all for it. There's that, and then the proposed drive. I'm not clear, Nate, your verbiage on that, because it looks like there's a proposed drive on your property from 19 that we would use, but, and maybe I'm hearing you wrong, but it sounds like you would be using our property as a driveway. Clarify that if you wouldn't mind, please.
Yeah, that's what, again, and I apologize if my concept plan is less conceptual than I intended it to be. I'm still looking for feedback on, am I able to use that access because that's what the county indicated to me. They have a preference. I mean, this is a county road, obviously, they can permit, that they have significant leeway in what they permit. They indicated to me that I would access off the same, road that the city building accesses off of. And so again, and maybe it's not possible to answer this question during this meeting, but I'm asking if the city would, I'm asking if the city would look at this as a full package. Obviously, there's some value that accrues to me to have that access. And I'm not saying Outlot A should change at all. If Park and Rec or Parks and Trails has an idea and this is what they like, I probably like it too, especially if this overall concept works and that access can be used for the future development of the 3 commercial lots.
I think any discussion regarding access off the city's driveway to Public Works would have to involve our engineering.
Yeah.
Because we can't really comment on whether it would even work or not, and if it didn't work, who would be, definitely wouldn't be us who's financially responsible for bringing it up to standards to make it work.
Right.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I'll just offer, yeah, you're correct. I mean, the current flow of Public Works really requires that space on the north side to make that looping turn there. So ideally, it'd be in a different location. Now, whether or not it could access at the exact same location and then bend north a little bit to avoid that, I think that'd be difficult probably for trucks and trailers coming in there. So in my sense, it would be a different access, and then Public Works would close off our access off 19 and then just enter onto this new street. And I think from the county's perspective, Nate, that's what really matters. They want one access no matter what. With whether it's 80 feet north or south of that, that's the conversation I've had with them.
Okay, so and maybe I just learned something new here. So they want a new road built in that scenario, and the existing road goes away, and then we're all sharing on the road.
Correct. It's really built as a driveway right now for Public Works, not a street.
Would these lots of these residential be part of a homeowners association?
There will be an HOA.
So is Outlot A owned by the HOA?
I don't know if it was dedicated.
The way it's requested would be dedicated to the city. so no.
Dedicated? Okay.
So, yeah, I think maybe a follow-up several meetings and getting some other people involved in the conversation is probably the best course of action.
I think it would be good for Nate to follow up with staff and really clarify what his proposal is.
Yeah.
And then we can bring that to Parks maybe on the 16th of September, and then back to the council maybe even that following week.
Okay.
Just so we're all clear what we're asking for, because the re-guiding and the rezoning requires a 4/5 vote to go from residential to commercial. So I want to make sure for everybody that you're on board with the proposal before Nate moves forward.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
One more bit of advice maybe for Nate as he's working through this. And maybe you can speak to this, Nate. Have you spoken at all with any of the property owners who would be adjacent to the rezoned property?
There's the property to the south. I haven't spoken to the owner, but I spoke to I guess the broker listing it, and I think they're kind of holding out for long-term development potential.
Okay.
There is another neighbor that was interested on the other side of 19, interested in acquiring, either leasing property or, acquiring farm property with no development rights.
Gotcha. Okay. Sounds good. So Nate, did you catch Kendra's comments about working with staff and trying to get that set up for the following meetings?
Yeah, That is tremendously helpful to me. So thank you, staff and council, for your feedback. And I think what we'll do is, I still would like to somehow try to get some feedback from the Parks Commission, rather than just kind of throwing that whole outlot out there like that. If there would be a way to get some feedback as to, what might be useful in terms of a park, I think that would be great. And then in terms of the road, certainly we would need city, the city planners or engineers, et cetera, to advise on what the city would, what would be willing to do, who shares in that cost, what the road standard is. So there's a bunch of things that we would need additional input on.
Right. Yep, I would say shoot Brad an email and we can take it from there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll go on to 8C, which is the sign ordinance updates discussion.
Natalie.
Thank you. Earlier this year, there was discussion about potentially eliminating the city's campaign sign enforcement policy prior to elections, and this is a chance to continue that discussion. The city considers campaign signs to be any non-commercial sign that has protection under Minnesota State Statute 211B.045, which states that non-commercial signs of any size are permitted in any number beginning the 46 days prior to the state primary until 10 days following the state general election. The statute does not prohibit cities from regulating the location of non-commercial sign placement during the exemption period. Next slide. So when we're preparing the staff report, I incorrectly referred to the 2018 campaign sign enforcement policy, and this was actually updated once more in 2020 to allow for uniform enforcement of the policy. Under the current policy, campaign signs are permitted on private property with the consent of the property owner. Campaign signs are not allowed on state, county, or city property, as well as right-of-way for state highways, county roads, and city streets. This policy was simplified to measure the right-of-way as 15 feet from the edge of the roadway, which allows for uniformity in enforcement, as it does not require staff to estimate the placement of property lines. And additionally, so signs will be removed immediately when they're found to be in violation, but they can be reclaimed during regular hours at City Hall up until 5 days after the election. Next slide. So allowing signs of any size and any number within the right-of-way or visibility triangles can obstruct the view and flow of vehicle and pedestrian traffic. Of 10 metro area cities surveyed, 8 cities did not allow signs within the right-of-way. 2 cities allowed signs within the right-of-way, with staff granted additional discretion to remove or deny signs found to obstruct traffic. And all cities had additional requirements to prevent signs within visibility triangles. And next slide. Oh, sorry. So staff does prefer an approach that has a clear set of standards that can be applied objectively, consistently, and fairly. In addition to campaign signs, discussions with developers have drawn attention to a need to reevaluate how temporary construction signs are treated under our current code. Currently, construction signs are treated just the same as any other temporary sign, which means only one sign can be allowed on site for 30 days at a time, up to 4 times a year. And this may not make sense with multi-phase development projects. There also appears to be a need to have construction sites that allow for additional sign that discusses construction site rules. OSHA does require that developers post site rules, and developers prefer to have this immediately visible upon entering the site. And staff believes it may be reasonable to allow for a second 32 square foot sign at the primary entrance of construction sites that can be posted until 90% of the building permits for residential development have been issued, or a certificate of occupancy has been issued for a commercial or industrial development. So this is just an example of what that would look like I believe these signs have been taken down because they're in violation of our current code, but this is what they would like to do. Next slide. So the recommendation is staff recommends continuing with the 2020 campaign sign enforcement policy, or at least provide a clear objective standard that can be enforced. And staff recommends moving forward with the proposed ordinance language as drafted in the packet, updating how we treat construction signs.
Thank you. I'll just start with kind of my initial feedback on the campaign sign. I definitely was surprised to see that it was 15 feet currently. I thought it was 10. And that might sound like it was a recent change.
That explains some things.
It might.
Yeah, what
So-
section went missing?
Yeah. So I guess wanted to get thoughts on that number, if that's the right number, if we're continuing with this approach. 15 seems like a lot to me from what I've seen with some other cities. I was looking at a few on, just before I came into City Hall. I think Woodbury, it's 5. I know there's a handful that are 10. And then there's some that just have different methods of determining it and enforcing it, but.
I would agree with the sentiment that we want to make sure that signs don't create safety issues.
Right.
I feel that 15 feet is excessive for that goal. The Woodbury number you cite seems like it would be adequate in most cases, provided that we're still not allowing it around corners. That's what I think is referred to by those site visibility
Right.
triangles. And I think that would be a reasonable place to start.
I personally don't see the need to make any change, to be honest with you. If you're talking about putting a sign 5 foot off road surface, you are creating a road hazard because now it's in your line of sight as you're driving down the road. We're not at Woodbury where most people are putting signs in a residential neighborhood. You're putting them on a street that has 40, 50 mile an hour speed. So, you know, you take your eye off the road at 50 miles an hour for a second to read a sign. Hopefully you don't kill somebody. And likewise too, if you put a sign if you say 5 feet off the road, you're basically, carte blanche can put a sign in front of anybody's yard. You could stick a sign in my front yard. It's 5 feet off the road. You say you have the right to do it.
In the public, you're talking about you have the right to do it because it's the public right of way?
It's public right of way then. It's 5 feet. So now all of a sudden you have these signs. We had signs popping up in our neighborhood in front of people's homes for people that were campaigning. And when you talk to the people and say, do you support this person? They said, I don't know how that sign got there. It just appeared. You know, I think we have a sign problem right now in the neighborhood in the city that we need to enforce. You know, when you look down here at 10 and 116, I counted like 8 signs on that intersection alone tonight on the way here. You can't tell me that people don't stop to look and read at the signs, so.
But at 10 and 116 specifically, in a lot of places, that's going to be county, isn't it? It's not going to be.
Hey, we should rip them all down.
Well,
I think actually we could, you can't just, aren't most of those signs illegal that are just put up like in the middle of the night for school bus drivers, junk cars, like technically that's all illegal. Because you can't just put signs in the right of way of the road and it's not on private property. Can you put the signs, if it's 5 feet, it's in the right of way, can you put a sign there without permission of the landowner? Because you still own the land as the landowner.
I would think not. 'Cause
It really hasn't been too much of a problem in the past. If people have called us, for example, and said, I was bottom a sign in my yard and I can't stand the guy, but it's in the right of way, what can I do? You know, we basically said, you know, that's your yard, you do what you want to do, we're not gonna, you know, that's your area.
Right.
You know, you're mowing it generally in that, so it's really not been an issue.
I've never put my signs in somebody's.
So if somebody practically would call us and say, can I remove
I
this?
just put them in the right of way.
Staff would say, yes.
Right.
You can remove that.
And I would imagine most people aren't even calling to ask permission for that. If it's in your property, I'd just yank it out. Yeah.
So it's really not a problem. Really, the only thing here is really the expectations of staff. What are we supposed to do when there's signs along the roadways? There's some regulation, or is it the Wild West? And some council in the past have advocated it should be the Wild West, it should be whatever you want to do during election time, and as long as this council is fine with that, then the staff knows what to do. But, you know, on county, this policy would apply to every road in the city, including county roads
Okay.
as well. So this is
Gotcha.
city policy for all the roads within Corcoran.
Is it 15 off center?
Off edge.
From the-
Off the edge, yeah.
That's
And I can,
like
That's
most
what I'm
of you
saying.
wouldn't even like 15. I don't know how far is that wall from here.
15 feet is
20?
closer than you think.
Objects in the mirror are closer than they appear.
I bet this diocese is probably not more than 15 feet.
I'd say it's pretty close, that section there is probably 12-ish.
Yeah, and when you talk about a road surface and a ditch, you're not that far off the ditch.
That's true. Yeah.
You're typically in the ditch at about 10 feet.
Yeah.
You're down at the bottom of the ditch at that distance. Ask me how I know. I would actually argue that it's probably safer to have it a little closer, because then if you are looking at a sign, you're not looking so far off the road. You've got your peripheral vision more on. I feel like it actually could be safer there.
Yeah. It's a valid point. I mean, I think we're all in agreement about the site visibility triangle, not to put them there, obviously. I think it's a matter of getting that number, something we're all comfortable with.
Why do we feel there's a need to change from 15 to 5?
I personally think 15 is too much of a distance, too big.
For what reason?
I think it's overly restrictive in terms of where signs can be put in. A lot of places, 15 feet, there isn't room for a sign to be in a certain spot if it's 15 feet off the road based on if there's a fence or whatever it is.
So is the objective to allow you to put signs on road right of way so you don't have to ask the property owner if you can put a sign in his yard?
No.
I think you'd still need permission, right? I mean,
That's what I
Right,
was asking.
yeah.
Right, but I mean, if it's right on the road, a lot of homeowners, they don't know either. They're gonna let it go until somebody really irks them to pull it. I don't think you should, I mean, we don't put phone poles 5 feet off the road. We don't, the only thing that's closer is a mailbox, and there's a reason, it's because the mail person doesn't have an arm long enough to reach 15 feet out. So why would we want to put anything closer to the road right away that could potentially cause a hazard for a driver and a pedestrian? There's no way I could vote for it.
I don't really see the safety concern. I think telephone poles, you want setback because those, if you hit them, there's a significant consequence. I don't see that as an issue here.
Right. I think it's different for sure. I mean, I guess if there was concerns about 5, going to what I think a lot of us thought was the previous ordinance, or what it was prior to 2018, 10?
Well, it was 10 feet off the property line in
Okay, so that
2018,
changed
and
from
so it's a
there.
little bit different language there.
Yeah.
So we made it easier and more uniform for staff.
Significantly
Right.
easier.
I'd be fine with keeping it at that road edge, and I guess 10 off the road edge seems reasonable to me. But it's just my opinion on it.
To me, there has to be a pretty strong reason to change any ordinance that we have. And so I don't think it's that compelling to change it to anything other than what we've got, and we all just deal with it. Unless it somehow infringes upon somebody's, in theory, if 15 feet is so far away that it inhibits somebody's First Amendment rights to have their sign be seen and heard, because that would potentially give incumbents like a way bigger advantage. So,
Right. Yeah.
for me, I actually think about is it disproportionately disadvantageous to somebody who's trying to enter the political scene to have their signs to make them have their signs not be able to be visible?
I think that's a good point.
Why don't we make, because you could have a government that says, we gotta have signs 50 feet off the road. Then no one will hear the message about why they should vote for the other guy. I just feel
Right.
like is 15 feet too far away, but I don't want to sit and change these rules all the time.
Mhm.
I don't really care that much.
Mayor and Council, if I may, so, one, this was just a policy internal really, so it's not even an ordinance or anything, it's really a policy of how we're acting with the ordinance as is. I will say, I think we kind of pulled 15 feet, we walked a couple areas as staff and said 15 seems reasonable. You all were the ones out putting signs everywhere. So that's for, in this instance, you are the experts, I would say, more than the staff, on what works in the ditches that you walked. So I just will offer that. We did a handful of them just to see what makes sense and kind of plucked 15 because that basic experience.
Gotcha.
I think John makes a good point with the First Amendment issue. I remember seeing a lot of signs that people would mount on snow poles to get them high enough so they wouldn't be sitting down in the ditch and be visible.
On snow poles? I mean,
Like driveway marker poles,
Yeah.
and they'd be flapping in the breeze. Honestly, it looked terrible. And the guy who did it is no longer sitting at this table, so I can say that. But I still think 5 is a reasonable number. It maintains good sight lines for people driving, and it creates the opportunity for somebody with a smaller sign to make their voice heard.
yeah, the size of the sign doesn't help you make your voice heard though, right? We provide plenty of opportunity when we have a League of Women Voters come in and the city organizes a public debate, and I mean, basically, you need to drum up your own support and not just stick signs out there, you know? You need to talk to people, get their permission, and put a sign out there.
But you're suggesting that people with a 5-foot rule, like they could go to the end of my driveway and put their sign 5 feet off the road, and I wouldn't have any say about it. When you own a piece of property, it goes out to the road. They have right of way, but I still can determine whether a sign is I'm legally within my rights. So no one can come and put a sign on the end of my driveway without me telling them that that's okay.
Yeah, but what if you own multiple parcels of land, or, you know, you're a farmer, let's say, you got
Sure.
land, you don't go out and check it all the time, and all of a sudden there's signs on 5 feet off the road in front of your property. How would you
Couldn't
feel?
someone do that at 15 if they were gonna break the rule
Yeah,
about
they could
it?
do it at 15
Right,
too.
I know, but you're more likely gonna do it at 5 feet than you are at 15. I just don't see the need to make the change right now, especially in a non-election year.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
not like
see
it's super
That's why we
pressing.
do it now, so it's not an
Wow.
election.
So it's not a contentious topic.
I mean, everybody up here has probably had a sign pulled, and everybody coming after us is gonna have a sign pulled, whether we do it at 5 or 15 or whatever. I mean, it's just something you have to learn and to adjust.
Well, how about this? I think we can agree on the style of of where we're measuring it from, the edge of the road instead of the property line. We can agree on continuing the enforcement as we have, and maybe we can think about the number and revisit it. I don't know if we need to set that right now. I know that's probably not the answer you want.
Yeah, I guess from the staff perspective, we're really checking a box here.
Yeah.
And if there's a direction, we have a lot of other things to focus on.
Right. I'd be comfortable with 10. I think Alan's clearly at 5. Or,
No.
I'm sorry, opposite of that, 15. You're at 5. And John, I'm not sure if you know.
Part of me doesn't care that much.
Fair enough.
I think historically I abstain from these because I don't care about it that much, but if I had to, the problem with like these get really heated before your election cycle, man, it was crazy how many calls both sides would complain about people's signs.
Gotcha.
Like it got really, really heated. And part of it was like, somebody'd say there's a sign at the on 10 and whatever. Brad would have to go out there.
Right.
Or Brad went out there once. Someone has to go out there and measure it.
Right.
And then
And it's just a mess.
It's a mess. And they need clarity as to, like, at least if we're on board with something, we will back the city in
Right.
these disputes.
Right.
So like if we can't wait till like during the middle of the election,
Right.
and Alan's got his all 5 feet,
And then change it, yeah.
yeah, and then so if there's no, we just have to land on something that's enforceable, measurable, and whatever. And I'm cool with it where it's at now. I'm cool with 10. I kind of don't want them 5 feet from the road. I think
Gotcha.
that's just. I think people generally hate those signs, and I think that like they really hate them when they're
Right.
right on top of the road.
Right.
So I'd be fine at 10.
Would you be fine at 10?
No. No,
Okay.
I feel like the appropriate balance, we're balancing the safety concern on one hand, so we can't have it in a place where it creates a safety problem. The other factor is freedom of speech for the people who put the signs up and the property owners who own the land. And we need to find a place where the safety issue is totally addressed, and then maximize what those homeowners and the people they choose to support can do.
Right.
And I feel like opting to stay with the status quo just because it's the status quo is a lazy way to approach it. And we should identify what is the safety level that we want and have that be the number.
Well, we changed this in 2020, right?
Mayor and Council, I think we've changed every election cycle, because whoever gets elected
Well-
wants to change it because it didn't work for them the last, or obviously it did work. Didn't like, but it didn't like it was. So I think it's changed in every election cycle.
Well, if a year and a half counts for status quo, we're gonna be changing shit every day, to be honest with you. I'm sorry to say that. It's just, that's nuts. And to say 10 feet infringes on someone's First Amendment rights to speech, that's crazy too.
Because
I'm talking to you at over 10 feet. Did I have to get closer to talk to you?
are we talking about talking?
We're talking about anything. 10 feet does not matter in freedom of speech. Sorry, but I just don't buy the argument.
I only postulated it. I'm not advocating for it.
I just think it's a waste of time to be even talking about it, to be honest with you right now.
I'd say we have 2 that can live with 10, one that's 15, one that's 5. So,
I guess in order to change a policy, it'd be nice to have a motion to direct us to change a policy, because this is what staff is supposed to do. Or it's nothing and it just dies and then stays what it is. But-
I'll make a motion to change the policy for campaign signs to a 5-foot limit, but maintain the other restrictions, that it needs to be with the consent of the homeowner and not an invisibility triangle close to a corner.
I'll second that. All those in favor, or any further discussion on it? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
I'll make a motion for the same restrictions at 10 feet. No second? Okay, that dies for lack of a second. So we'll
Status quo.
status quo for now.
And that's one part. The second part is if you had any other changes for the proposed ordinance language for construction signs.
I had a question on that part of it. What do we count as a construction site? If it's in a development, does every individual lot count as a site, or is it the overall?
No, Mr. Mayor, Counselor Nichols, I worked with the city attorney to define a construction site as a collective of any properties under construction for a residential, commercial, or industrial development. So the idea is there would be a primary entrance and 2 signs would be allowed for the entire site. So if there's multiple parcels that were, like Tavera, where there's multiple parcels suggested together, they only get 2 signs for that entire project.
Okay, thank you.
Is there restriction on, so that's on bigger signs? So like, what about smaller signs when you come into?
So anything over 8 square feet needs a permit, but if they decided to have 2 8 square feet signs, they don't need a permit, but they only get those 2.
Anything over 8 square feet?
Anything over 8 square feet needs a permit, and then the actual limit is 32 square feet with a permit.
Okay.
And there's
So
only-
anything under 8 square feet, they can have as many signs as they want?
No, there's only, they would still count towards the 2, but they just wouldn't need a permit.
So I'm thinking of like, for examples, when you drive into Ravinia, there's like multiple signs that say, hey, construction worker, you can't do this, can't do that.
So I believe we went through Ravinia, right? Was that the one that had all those signs? Yeah, those signs are not okay. I think we sent a letter saying they needed to be removed. But the idea would be there could be 2 signs total. So they can decide what size works for them. Anything over 8 square feet needs a permit, but 2 signs, and ideally one would be for just advertising the development, and then the other one would be for the construction site rules.
Okay. So 2 in total for the total development?
Correct, yes.
So if there's multiple access points to the development, they would still only have 2?
Correct, they would choose a primary community entrance to post the signs.
To me, it would seem like they would almost, you would almost want to have more, especially if there's multiple access sites.
Currently, you can only have 1, there's at the primary entrance.
Okay.
So we're actually increasing the amount that they legally can have. But I would argue that sometimes they aren't paying attention to that, and we're kind of
Alright.
cracking down on it.
My expectations were wrong, then by wrong behavior, I guess, sorry. And I'm fine with these changes.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
One is like, are these custom made? Like, is it possible to require a phone number to call like M&I?
Don't think, want to get into
We can't
content.
regulate the content.
No.
Okay.
Yes, so we have to be careful about that. Even in my
That's-
definition, I had to be like, it can include elements such as, I couldn't.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have to discuss that. I get it. And then is there a problem we're trying to fix here? Is it, because we ran into a couple meetings ago, like somebody wanted a big sign and then we said no, because that's against our ordinance. And then somebody pointed out there are multiple big signs all over Corcoran. So is there a problem with those multiple, like, obviously those are against the rules, but is there a problem with it? Are there too many signs in Ravinia? I live in the sticks on a dirt road, so I don't know about whether people are bothered by all those signs everywhere. The real question is there a problem that we're trying to fix here? What is the problem?
So,
Can I say something? I think one of the issues that I heard before is that your developer building this development, they're putting up all these signs, but you're a commercial property downtown, you only get one little sign.
So so the problem is inconsistency of who gets to have, like,
Right.
we ran into
It's
with
unfair,
with
practice.
Concrete Science, they
Yeah.
wanted, we didn't allow them to do something, and then to builders,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, they could just do anything.
Right.
Okay, so that makes sense. Should at least-
Mr. Mayor, additionally, staff, we're also trying, basically, I apologize. Basically, right now, under our current code, temporary signs have a 30-day limit. And developers are putting these signs up long-term for multi-phase projects, which arguably makes sense. But they're still temporary signs. So part of the problem that we're trying to solve is basically separating these out from how we handle other temporary signs so that we can accommodate that reasonable ask.
Okay, thank you, Alan.
So are we all good with the proposed language then? Yes. Explanation? Okay. Good deal.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go on to 9A, which is Corcoran Trail Street Improvements bid, awarding bid.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. I'll tee this one up, and Kevin is joining us virtually as well. But we received 6 bids for the project. They range from about $510,000 to $612,000. A little bit is from Park Construction Company. The revised project cost is just under $600,000, $590. As noted in the report by Kevin, it's about $56,000 over the previous estimate, and the reason being is before the bids went out, staff had some conversation about the potential for added drain tile in the road, which is really about that cost. As noted in the staff report, Kevin's reviewing that to see if that actually makes sense, if it's worth the extra cost. but that would be really refined by the time we approve the project if we do award the bid. So, as far as moving forward, how we pay for it, apologize for the formatting there. The special assessments are proposed for $176,000. We have $175,000 allocated in our general fund budget for 2021, and then the gap would be funded by the asphalt fund. Also in the staff report, I noted that we likely would be assessing these over 10 years, so that $176,000 we still would have to at least temporarily fund until the payments came back with a low interest rate. So with that, we're looking for a motion to authorize the notice of award for the improvements, and Kevin is available for questions, as am I.
Perfect. Any questions for Brad or Kevin?
I don't have a question that's specific to this project, but generally speaking, I know we have the asphalt fund. Are there any mechanisms that will continually replenish that on an ongoing basis under the current system?
Really, no. I mean, the assessments will kind of result in a revolving loan fund. When they come back, we'll then have $139,000. So, but at this point, no, we really haven't had a dedicated funding source. We've been trying to really start all of our funds. So a couple years back, maybe 6 years ago, we started funding our capital improvement plan, increasing that annually, and that has never caught up. 2 years ago, we just started finally with an inkle into stormwater fund. We just need to also allocate filling up an asphalt fund too. And that's part of the items, for example, the council wanted to look into. One of the few actually action steps that we haven't moved forward this year is looking at such as potential for franchise fees or any other fees to look into to help fund these sources. So that'll be on a future agenda as well. So that's a long answer, but the short answer is no.
Okay. I continue to support figuring out a way to have a mechanism to fund this long-term, because as we develop and as gravel roads convert, like another project we're looking at Appaloosa Woods, when that one converts, that creates a long-term liability. Every 10 years we have to patch it, every 30 years we have to replace it. It would be nice if we had a mechanism to put that money away as that road is wearing out, so we're not struggling to fund these when they come due.
As does every mile of road we take for developments. Year 7, we have to seal coat. Year 14, seal coat, and year 20, overlay, and year 40, replace. So exactly right.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I just have a question since I just need clarity on that. So the price of this road has changed 10%. And so do we need to, like, how is the drain tile was found, or it needs to be added? Do you think it would change who we awarded this to if we have, I just want to ask for the taxpayers' sake.
Yeah.
Because there are times where this is like a thing people do. I'm not suggesting it's happening here, but they'll bid low knowing
And then
that they'll
change it.
just, well, we forgot about this, or we have to add this, we didn't know about that. So I just want to cover the basis as far as, do you think that this would, if we rebid it, someone else would be the winner?
I'll let Kevin respond to that, but basically it's all in quantities, so it shouldn't affect anything. But Kevin, can you add any color to that statement I made?
Sure, Mayor and Council. That drained tile idea that Public Works asked was added before this bid occurred. So the short answer is we have a very confident market-priced bid within $2,000. So we're confident we got the market price. We thought we were gonna have a good value of adding some additional drain tile on some of the low spots, just as a insurance policy, and the price of that tile due to market conditions that we didn't see was about 4 or 5 times what we were anticipating. So that's the $56,000. So my comment in there is we're going to ratchet that back. We're going to dial that down. We're probably still going to add a little bit, but it's going to be really the bare minimum, or if we see an unforeseen in the field where we think there brings value. So the way the bin unit price is, we can scale back any quantity we want and kind of control that a little bit. So it shows as as a 5-10 project, but it's gonna come in under that because we're gonna dial back that drain tile because we didn't expect the price to be 4 times what was the bid. And that bid was consistent through all 6 bidders, so it wasn't like anyone, had an outlier that we could work around and get a better value. So in long answer, again, I apologize, but it was really just an ad, and we feel confident we can manage it back to that original number.
Kevin, you're an engineer, so your answers are always long, right? But thorough. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. Anything else? I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to authorize notice of award for Corcoran Trail Street Improvement to Park Construction Company.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I couldn't tell if I heard 3 or 4 there. We're good.
4.
Perfect. On to 10A. Do we have a public comment
Yeah,
opportunity?
Mayor and Council, I realized I forgot to mention that before the
I did
last
too.
item. That was on me, I apologize for that, but we do have a public comment opportunity for the item of city council appointments. Jessica, you want to come online?
Sure. If anyone's joining us virtually, you can press *9 on your phone. Otherwise, you can press on the reactions tab, the raise your hand button.
And we didn't have anybody sign up in advance in the audience.
Yes, and we do not currently have anyone raising their hand.
Okay. Well, who wants to start us off here? I'll say we had 6 candidates, and I met or talked with all of them and was very impressed. I think we have a lot of people that want to get involved, and it's a good problem to have too many people that want to get involved and not enough spots for them. I guess I'd kind of lean on you guys for unfortunately having experience with this very specific issue. Kind of where your thoughts are and how it's been handled in the past.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I could start, I guess.
Sounds good.
Is that okay?
Go for it.
So historically speaking, I have said that, and when we've had openings before, just for fluidity and knowledge base and maybe experience and already involvement with the city, I prefer to have somebody who's on a commission be moved to the council when we have an emergency opening. So somebody that is up to date with the stuff and has dedicated themselves to process. I talked to all but one person, and the candidates were impressive, and it was awesome to see people want to get involved with the city. So, we always have this is a neat town full of neat people with different backgrounds. One of them, he immigrated. He and his parents immigrated when he was like 7 years old, and he spoke English, but his parents did not, and he had to interpret business deals for his mom and dad at like the age of 9.
That's cool.
Because they didn't know English. There was a guy that was in the military and served the country, and a small business owner. We have such interesting people in Corcoran, and it's all across the board. So picking these positions and saying no to people who are your friends and family sucks.
Yeah.
And I know you've lost sleep, and I've lost sleep about this, and we all have. I think we have tons of angst about it, because you have to tell 5 people that want to volunteer their time
Right.
that they're not able to do that. So my hope is that everybody who doesn't win, still stays active with the community. We need an active community. So my preference would be we take the 2, so we have 2 people, Dean and Mark, from the Planning Commission, and I half jokingly say that the Planning Commission is working their ass off and they're doing a good job, so I want to keep the Planning Commission good. I don't want to pluck
Right.
from it, but it's, in my opinion, the right thing to do. So I would lead off that I would either go with Mark or Dean. Each one of them's different. I like both of them. I like their personalities and the families and what they've done and the values. And they're super additive. It's kind of like, and I think I told Dean this today, my two kids, next Saturday, Ryan has a cross-country meeting, or cross-country meet at 8, and Luke has a soccer game at 9. So like, between my two sons, I have to pick like,
Join.
I have to go to Ryan or Luke and say, well, you know, I'm gonna go to your brother's thing. And so I feel like in this situation, I have to apologize to one of you, in my view, because we have to pick only one. So well, I'm torn about that, so it's hard.
So I think we should focus on people that are on the planning commission. But that, as I've said 100 times in talking to these people, I'm only one of 4. So
Right.
I just lead it off.
No, I think that makes sense, especially with just some stuff that we have coming up, you know, with budgeting and a lot of big things that might be helpful to be a little more up to speed than someone who hasn't been involved in any of that process currently. So I would agree that makes sense to probably look at those two candidates. Now, that still gives us 2 candidates that I would love to see both of you on the council. So, yeah, it's, like you said, incredibly tough. And I'm not sure which direction to take this, but if you wanted.
Yeah, no, I appreciate everyone who stepped up and volunteered for that. I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed. I was hoping there'd be a strong female candidate in the pool to show some diversity versus soon to be 5 more white guys sitting up here. Want to throw your name in the hat?
Come on. You can nominate her.
They should. She's the only one here.
Well, then we'll fill your spot.
Just do it again in a month.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with going down that route, and those people that, you know, we didn't pick know that there's going to be an opening on the planning commission, which is a very important commission with the city, so throw your name in that hat.
Yeah. I will say, I think everyone that I talked to that's not currently on planning commission said that if an opening were to occur, they'd be interested in just having their stuff stay on file so that any future openings they're considered for, which is great. So.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep, go right ahead.
What is your opinion?
I agree with what was said about, I think, the 2 candidates that happen to be here and are on planning. Between them, I can make 10 fantastic arguments for both, so.
Do you have a order?
Not on me, unfortunately, because that would be useful.
Where are you at?
I am fine restricting our scope to the 2 highly capable, intelligent, well-spoken, long-term resident planning commission members that have applied. I feel like it is a hard decision, and everybody else has already said all of the kind and polite and gracious things that I wanted to say. There's a ton of value that Dean has already added in the planning commission. And I've talked with both of them at length about progress in the city. And I'm just as torn as you guys. I've talked with Mark, too, about his views on how things have gone in his time on the planning commission, and he's made a lot of significant impacts finding a lot of things for us. There's a ton of value that both can add in different ways. And I'm struggling just as much as you guys are to pick between the 2 of them.
You want to wrestle? I don't.
Well, if you don't want to go with the coin, I'll put Dean's name forward since he's been on the commission a little bit longer.
True.
Just for that only fact on its own.
Okay. Do you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. for Dean Varenkamp.
Do we have a second? I'll second it. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
I'm not gonna abstain. Let me think about this.
I don't have a quarter.
No, well, it's 3.
So what are the
but I-
votes in favor?
2.
Which two?
Us?
It was 3. I said,
Oh, you
I said yay.
Oh. I guess we're done.
Yeah.
I said it quietly. But.
Yay.
Okay. Congratulations and thank you, Mark. I really appreciate both of you guys' time and dedication to the city.
And there's an election cycle in 2 years, remember that.
Not even.
Not even 2 years.
Year and a month, year and
So-
2 months.
So Mayor and Council, with that, I guess I forgot to reference, we do have a resolution in the packet to have a blank, really, so it's Resolution 2021-98, appointing now Dean Varenkamp to the Corcoran City Council. So maybe just for a formality, if you wouldn't mind adopting that resolution.
Yep.
That'd be-
I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve Resolution 2021-98, appointing Dean Varenkamp to the city council.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And the resolution does say September 9th, as far as a timeline that would allow Dean to attend the September 2nd Planning Commission meeting. Do that as well.
He could send a resignation in before that.
He
though.
could resign before then if you want to do that. And I'll follow up with Dean on all the details, of course, of all his special powers and his cape and those types of things.
Will require a resignation, correct?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
do I get the right to refuse?
sure.
Sure.
As you guys have struggled making this decision, me finding out that Mark was another one of the people, you could not have gone wrong with either one of us in my mind. I know I told you guys, if you did not choose me, I would still continue doing what I'm doing on the planning commission and such, with the same passion and love for this community that I've always had. In the 14 years I've lived here, and then in the 20 years I lived next to Corcoran, I just see the whole area as something great. So, thank you, I accept, but it would not have been a bad choice either way. You guys spoke eloquently about this, and it would have torn me up too. So, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you both. It definitely, as John said, kept me up this past couple weeks. But, all right, well, thank you. And I think that is all we have, so unless we wanted to highlight the upcoming schedule.
Mayor and Council, we do have a work session before the next agenda, the budget and financial plan. I encourage anyone who is listening and heard public forum comments on budget. It's all online, and it's all I'm going to look at line item by line item. So whoever has budget comments certainly can make them. We'll have the oath of office for new council member Dean Varenkamp. We will do a brief oath before the work session with Dean aside, so he's a official council member for the work session, but we'll do a public one at the council meeting. And then we have just items on job description, stormwater area charge, calling assessment hearings, and more. So continues to be busy moving forward.
Sounds good. If there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.